Hey there, grade 8s. Welcome to lesson 5 of chapter 5. In today's lesson, we're going to be talking about exploring ratios. So I'm in a new location today. So we got sent home for work. So we're actually not at the school. So I'm going to do my best to try to get this lesson to work. When we're talking about exploring ratios, there's a couple different things. So there's several examples right away that I just want to give you. If we were to say like 2 out of 3 people preferred a certain like butter on their popcorn. Okay, so that means for every 3 people, 2 of them would prefer. Or if I wanted to expand that, I could say 7,036 out of 10,554 people preferred butter on their popcorn. Okay, it's the same ratio. It's a 2 to 3 ratio. Or I can say twice as many people prefer butter on their popcorn to people that don't. So some of you might look at that like, how does that work? How does it twice? Well, if you have one person that doesn't prefer butter on their popcorn, so like I said in the first example, 2 out of 3, so of the 3 people, 2 of them prefer it, 1 of them don't. Okay, 2 is twice as much as 1. So you could say twice as many people. Okay, or if I'm talking about my second example, I could say, 3,518 more people preferred butter on their popcorn as opposed to not. So that's if I'm taking all of the information and I'm trying to expand it on it. So what we're kind of talking about here is we're actually kind of talking about equivalent fractions still. And so ratios are like fractions. So I've got this example that we're going to use. So here's the picture. So I've got red triangles, green circles, and blue squares. So I'll give you guys a second just to count everything up. And then I'm going to go over a couple things. And I've got another board that I'm actually going to use to talk about it. So I'm just going to set this one aside. For now, I don't know if you'll fully be able to see it if I maybe lean it up here like this. Okay. So you can always kind of refer back to that one if you need. So what I've done here is I've actually summarized what we have. So we have 7 red triangles, 8 green circles, and 5 blue squares. So there's a couple different types of ratios that we are going to talk about. The first one is called a 2-term ratio. Okay, so we have a 2-term ratio. Okay, and just to emphasize, a ratio is a comparison between 2 things. Okay, so we can do kind of a whole group ratio. So if I was to say, what is the ratio of red triangles to all shapes? Okay, so that means I have to actually add them up. So 7 plus 8 is 15. 15 plus 5 gives me 20. So I have 20 total shapes. Okay, so my ratio, if I wanted to compare of red triangles to all shapes, would be 7 to 20. So I'm saying 7 of the 20 shapes are going to be red triangles. Or I can make it as a fraction. So I can say 7 out of 20. Whoops, not 12. 7 out of 20. Okay. So that's kind of the first one. Okay, and then I could also turn that into a percent because we've been talking about percents. So 7 out of 7 divided by 20 gives us 35%. Okay, so that's when we're using a 2-term ratio. Okay, the other one that we can do, so this is a 2-term ratio, is when we're actually comparing one thing to the whole. One thing to the whole. Okay, then we have part to part. Okay, which when you think about these definitions, they're actually pretty straightforward. So when we're thinking of 2-term ratio, we're talking about just 2 numbers. When we're thinking about part to part, we're thinking about part of the whole to another part of the whole. So if I was to compare the green squares to the blue squares to the green circles, I would have a 5 to 8 ratio. Okay, and I put this colon in between to show that it is a comparison. Okay, so these can be kind of simplified. So for basically what it's saying, for every 5 green or blue squares, there's going to be 8 green circles. Okay, so what if there was 10? If there was 10 blue squares, how many green circles would I have? Well, I doubled the 5, so I would double the 8, and I would get 16. Okay, the last one that we have is a 3-part ratio. Okay, so a 3-part ratio is one where we can actually compare all the different shapes. So we could say it's a 5 to 8 to 7. Okay, so these are terms that can technically be simplified. They can be expanded on. So they're similar to fractions, but what we're actually doing is we're adding in extra terms, and it's looking a little bit different. So instead of it being like a fraction like we have in my first example, I'm twisting it sideways, and I'm kind of cutting up the line and making it a colon instead of a straight line. Okay, so we're going to go over a couple more examples. So I'm just going to erase this one so that I can give you guys some of examples. So let's say there's a class party. Okay, at the class party, there's 16 boys, 15 girls, and 4 adults. Oops. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to show me a comparison of boys to girls. I want you to show me a comparison of boys to girls to adults. And then I want you to show me a comparison of adults to the total number of people at the party. Okay, so feel free to pause it and then come back, and then we're going to go through the answers. Okay, so the first one, I'm doing a comparison of boys to girls. So I'm taking all of the boys, so it's going 16 to 15, because there's 15 girls. Okay. In the second one, I'm going to compare the boys to the girls to the adults. So I'm taking the same thing, but as you can see, this is a part-to-part ratio. I'm doing part of the whole to another part of the whole. Here I'm doing a 3-term ratio. So I've got 16 to 15 to 4. Okay. And then here I'm going to say adults to the total. So I know I have 4 adults. What's my total? So 16 plus, well, I'll just say plus 4 is 20. 20 plus 15 is 35. So my 2-term ratio at the bottom is going to be 4 to 35. So those are kind of the idea that you're going to be using. So you're going to be using those 3 types. Okay, so once again, we have a 2-part or 2-term ratio, which would be like this one. Okay, where we're having part of one to the whole. We have a term to term ratio, okay, which would be this one, okay, or part to part. And then we have a 3-part ratio, which would be right here, where we're having a part to a part to a part. Okay, and then we'll kind of expand on these a little bit more as the chapter goes on. So if you have any questions, make sure that you bring those questions to the Hangouts or the Zooms, and good luck.